In studio with us now, Executive Vice President and General Manager Nick Caserio. Nick, here we are in the postseason. Let's reflect a little bit, though. Victory over the Titans to get the 10th win of the season. Double-digit wins, back-to-back years to start out the D'Amico era. I know you've been here a little bit longer, but that's a nice start and a good foundation to build upon.
Yeah, we did a lot of good things as a team this year. So win 10 games back-to-back, win a division back-to-back years. It says a lot about the players, the coaches, the amount of work, the amount of effort that everybody puts into this. So it's a good place to be. So we put ourselves in a position here where we have an opportunity with the postseason, which would be a good opponent coming in here, as we know. We'll talk about that here in a little bit. But a lot of credit to a lot of people, starting with D'Amico, just his leadership and what he's done. So, but to win 10 games in this league back-to-back seasons is not an easy thing to do. So we should all be appreciative of what we've done, also understanding that's kind of in the rearview mirror, and now we have to press forward.
Nick, how important was it to, sorry way of saying this, I don't want it to be because, well, your positive vibes are good, but just to have positive football being played before you go into the playoffs?
Yeah, each game you go into it, and there's certain things you have to be able to execute and play a certain way, play to our style, kind of rep our style. D'Amico talks quite a bit about that. And we look at the game yesterday, there were a lot of elements that we ran the ball well, we stopped the run, which Pollard was a factor in the first game. We talked about that as one of the the pregame notes about some of the things that we have to take care of. But we were able to run the ball, we were able to stop the run, we were able to create a turnover. I mean, Barnett scored. I mean, anytime you score on defense is a good thing. So we did the things that were conducive to winning, gave up a few explosive plays, which we talked about being able to limit those. So fortunately, we gave them there at the end. But each game, there's certain dynamics and components that are going to go into it. And we look at the game yesterday, a lot of things happened in our favor, which is why we got the positive result that we did. So in the end, it's about playing good football and doing the things that are conducive to winning.
Nick, last week we talked about, do you rest certain guys? How do you handle the situation? Clearly, the situation was handled in the right way. Great opening drive. Then CJ and Mixon are done. Nico not out there for much longer. You're able to get some guys some rest, yet some rhythm as well going into the playoffs.
Yeah, you always want to be smart about how you handle your football team. Also understanding that anytime you have an opportunity to go out on the field and play, you're trying to play well and get the win. So whoever is involved in that. So however it worked itself out, we expected a number of players were going to play. How long that was going to be, honestly, the game was probably going to dictate that. But to be able to go out there, and I would say you look at the first two of the first three drives, we scored points. So we got off to a good start as a team. First drive, as you alluded to, but then scored on the second or third drive, whatever it was. We're up 13-0. That's how you want to start a football game. That mindset, that mentality, it's going to be no different this week as we get ready to play the Chargers.
Damen Pierce, big day. Obviously, it's a 92-yard run, Nick. But just to get Damen kind of going and get him having some positive runs. I mean, there were more positive runs outside of that 92-yarder. In fact, there might be a few that were a little bit more impressive. Him, fighting through tackles and picking up 8-10 yards. Your thoughts about Damen kind of finding his role in the kickoff in particular? He's been really, really good there. But then also having those carries to show, hey, I still got a little bit of what people thought I had.
Yeah, DP has taken advantage of his opportunities all season. He's helped us in a number of different games. He had the long touchdown run against New England, which is another explosive play. We talked about the kickoff returns. We had the explosive plays. Then he ran for 176 or however many yards it was yesterday, including a 92-yard run. So Damien's a good back, and when his opportunities have been presented, he's gone in there and taken advantage of them. So he's got a great attitude. He's got a great mindset. He's got a great approach. He's always ready to play. And it was good for him to go out there and have success with his chances.
The configuration of the five guys up front, Nick, it wasn't always perfect, but they were in there for a bunch of snaps, and they executed well. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, we've had a mix and match seemingly the entire season to a certain extent, but Juice over there at right guard. So here's an example of a player who's really started at all three inside spots. He started center, he started left guard, started at right guard. I mean, that's incredible value to your overall offensive line configuration, but Juice went in there and played well. That group of five overall, I mean, we had a couple sacks, the one sack, we kind of went out of the back of the pocket there a little bit. Landry ran around the corner. But overall, I mean, we've talked about this on the show since probably about midway through the year. I mean, the offensive line's done a pretty good job, especially in pass protection. In a passing game and pass protection, there's always different components, whether it's a quarterback is involved in it, whether it's a guy gets beat one-on-one. Maybe they get you from a schematic standpoint. So there's always a number of factors that are involved. It's typically not one particular thing. But that group overall did a really solid job, including Deckless went in there and played pretty much half the game there at left tackle. Once LT was out, Titus pretty much played the whole game. Honestly, I mean, not really many people have talked about Titus, but the job he's done at left guard has been really incredible, really impressive. He's had the right mindset. He's gone in there selflessly to help the football team. So he deserves a lot of credit just for his approach and the mindset that he's taken.
I love the mindset yesterday against Simmons. He and Simmons were kind of chatting at each other throughout the game, and Titus was not backing down. He made a great block on the Damen run, which brings me to this, Nick. You're a day short because of playing on Saturday. I haven't played on Sunday. Do you look much back at the Titans game and review it much, or is the 100% focused now on Chargers going forward?
Yeah, you probably go through your process, and honestly, everybody probably went through it on the plane, and then once we landed and come in here this morning, like we knew we were playing the Chargers, so really the preparation and the focus is exclusively on the Chargers and getting ready for a really good football team.
All right, what about the defensive line? I wanted to ask you about this. We had Rod Wright in here again last week. This is our second visit with him. And the camaraderie, the togetherness of this group is notable. And it feels like every week I'm saying somebody else's a different name. Somebody makes a big play. Mario has a sack in the game. We've seen Barnett do what he did before, which is saying something as well. What about that group as a whole, Nick?
Yeah, it's a fun group. It's a great group. It's funny. Their meeting space is 2 doors down from my office. And every morning, like inevitably you hear them. There's a lot of energy. There's a lot of juice in a good way.
Yeah.
But Nate and Rod do a great job with that group. There's a lot of energy, and they all want to see each other do well and have success. So they root for one another. They pull for one another. We felt in the offseason that was going to be one of the more deep groups on the roster, and they've all made significant contributions at different points, whoever's been on the field. From Tommy, who got here late, to Will and Daniil have been here from the beginning. Mario's been here from the beginning. You know, Foley's kind of been in and out. But whoever we've put on the field, they've been productive with their snaps. And it's a credit to Nate and Rod for the work that they do with that group.
It's hard to qualify this, but when you see Barnett score and the bench almost empties, and I know you get the penalty, but in that game, it didn't matter. Fairbairn made the extra point from 48, but you see that kind of togetherness. And then Johnny pointed out that CJ and Mixon were in the huddle at one point in their long capes, and that was a little bit later on in the game. But the fun, the joy seemed to be there, and I know that's hard to measure, but it could have a really positive effect.
Yeah, the players are invested in each other, and it transcends both sides of the ball. It's not just offense for offense, defense for defense. Like, everybody wants to see the team do well, and even in the meeting room, I mean, offensive, defensive guys sit amongst one another. So there's a camaraderie with the team. It's a fun team to be around. They work hard. They have a good attitude. Understanding it hadn't been perfect. Like, we've had some ups and downs, but they've dealt with it. They've always shown up each day with the right approach. And that's a credit to the coaches, it's a credit to the players in their room. And in the end, we just want all to see each other have success. And when a teammate does have success, you want to be able to celebrate that with him.
Nick, with the successes you guys had in New England, there were always teams that were wanting to hire your coaches, hire your scouts, hire your people. Kind of similar thing here with the Texans. How tough is this week as it pertains to, teams throughout the league saying, hey, we like this guy. We'd like to interview this guy. We'd like to talk to this guy. How does that kind of work throughout the week? And how do you, as a staff and just as an organization, not let it kind of bleed through into the preparation and losing out on the preparation for the playoff game?
Yeah, sure. You try to balance everything off, and it's a tribute to the people involved that there's interest. But we also understand that we have a job to do, and the main focus is on the Chargers this particular week. But those opportunities are going to present themselves, and we'll always comply with the league, and we'll always work with the individual to try to make it work in the best interest for everybody involved.
All right, so it is a short week. Johnny, I want you to go ahead. I don't want to steal the question.
I just making sure we got to that time of the show because
yes,
I love it when last week we got to talk about the Titans. We talked about the Titans already. We know what the Titans have. But now it's the LA Chargers, a team we haven't seen in a couple years. We know the quarterback, but coaching staff all new, coaching scheme. Greg Roman is OC, doing some different things. Give us a scouting report on the Chargers for Saturday, Nick.
Yeah, really good football team, and anybody that's in the playoffs, I mean, they're all good football teams. So it's about really who plays the best, not necessarily the best teams, but this is a really good football team that we're going to face. I mean, I think Coach Harbaugh, his record kind of speaks for itself. Wherever he's gone, whatever program he's involved with, they win, and they win quickly. And, Coach Harbaugh is one of the best coaches in all of sport, and he's shown that at a multitude of levels. So top to bottom, Coach Harbaugh, Joe Ortiz, who came over from Baltimore, is a really well-respected executive and has done a great job of piecing the team together. So they've worked well with one another to put the team together. Offensively, you mentioned Greg Roman, former teammate of mine from John Carroll. But Greg,
really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, Greg and I were.
Nice.
I was a young pup, and He was a senior, but
Original Texans coach, too.
Greg's done a great job. You know, he's been in the league a number of years. He had a lot of success in Baltimore, had the year off here, whatever it was, and has a relationship with Coach Harbaugh, and they've gone in, and it's a good offensive football team. Everything starts with the quarterback. Justin's played as good as any quarterback in the league. The thing about him that stands out is just how he's taking care of the football to a level as good as any in the league. They don't turn the ball over offensively. They're one of the lowest teams in turnovers. I think they have 9 on the year, and they take the ball away. Their turnover margin, they're top 3. So, and Justin, massive arm, big, strong, can make every throw, and he's deceptively athletic. Like, he can make plays with his legs. He's played really high-level football for them. Good group of skill players, 2 good backs. You know, Edwards, who kind of has some of the Baltimore roots. J.K. Dobbins, another player who's kind of had injuries throughout the course of his career, but he's been very productive when he's been healthy. They've gotten good production from the tight end there, from Stone there, kind of late in the passing game. So they've done a good job mixing and match, and they're kind of on the Ricard program with Matt Locke, kind of using him, defensive tackle, tight end, fullback. But it's a big physical offensive line, 2 outstanding tackles. I mean, top 10 picks in Alt and Slater. Good job in the middle, Zion Johnson there. They took in whatever year that was at left guard. So big physical front, 2 really good tackles. And on a perimeter, McConkey's been as good of a receiver, rookie receiver, as there's in the league. Over 80 catches, over 1,000 yards. We thought very highly of Ladd, and you know, I think the whole league did, and you can see why. And then Quentin Johnson's come on here lately as well. So offensively, they're very efficient. They don't turn the ball over. They're good situationally, and then defensively, Coach Minter's done a phenomenal job of kind of mixing and matching some different people. They're the best red area defense in the league. So we talk about some of the keys, like points are going to be at a premium. They're number 1 in the league in red area defense. They don't give up a lot of points, and everything kind of starts with the front. So 2 good edge players in Bosa and Mack, and inside there's strong physical front with Tart, and Puna Ford. And then kind of at the linebacker level, Henley leads them in tackles. So here's a player, didn't play at all in 23. Now he has 140-some-odd tackles, but he's fast. He's athletic. Navarro Bowman, who is one of the better linebackers in the league, he's coaching the linebackers, done a great job with him. And then the secondary, everything starts with Derwin. Derwin's as versatile a defensive player as there's in the league. Hybrid linebacker, safety. He's down near the line of scrimmage. He caused a lot of havoc, a lot of problems. In the secondary and on the perimeter, they've kind of turned the corner position over. Asante Samuel was hurt earlier in the year, but still the 5th-round pick from Maryland's played. Hart's played. Fulton, who was in Tennessee last year, has played. And then Gilman's kind of been a mainstay there at safety. And in the kicking game, you know, Dicker's done a really good job. He's been as good a kicker as in the league. So this is a well-constructed football team. They play the right way. They play smart. They play physical. They don't turn the ball over. And they're good situationally, so that's the challenge that's in front of us.
So brand new season, brand new start, really. In your experience, postseason success, how much is game plan or just doing what you do well in general and just keeping it not basic, but you can overthink these things sometimes, perhaps?
No, it's a great point, Mark. So really, you're not going to all of a sudden like change your team, change your offense, come up with a whole new plays, a whole new scheme on defense. You might make some subtle tweaks and adjustments to what you're doing that may work against a particular opponent, but your system's your system. And it goes back to, like we've talked about in the show, is understanding the personnel, understanding who you're playing against, some of the challenge that you face. To John's point, the team that we saw 2 years ago, there's a lot of new players that weren't even involved in that game. So that game is sort of irrelevant. We've got 17 games that we can evaluate what we've seen from the Chargers, and there's a lot of good football against a lot of good teams. So you start there, have an understanding of who you're playing against, and what are some of the things that you do on either side of the ball that may match up with the particular team that you're facing.
Nick, how similar is their usage to Derwin and Kyle Hamilton with Baltimore?
Interesting. Similar but different.
Yeah.
Kind of Kyle transitioned a little bit more to true safety as the year has gone on. Derwin is literally lining up everywhere.
Right.
So big nickel, safety. Sometimes he's a linebacker, and dime, it's a different alignment. In some respects, it's similar, but they're both very versatile players, do a lot of things well, and are factors, especially in a run force, that you have to account for.
Nick, as the calendar turns January, all of a sudden, oh my gosh, we're getting deeper into January, and I know you have other work to do as well. We're 6 weeks away from the combine, pre-draft prep, all of that has to go on while you're preparing for these playoff games. So what about that part of it? How do you operate?
Yeah, you want to stay organized, and you kind of create different buckets, and different people throughout the organization and building are focused on certain areas. So we're not going to lose sight of that. I think the next thing that's on the calendar will be some of the underclassmen declarations. In terms of the final list, I think we've had 30, 35 or so to this point. There'll probably be another 30 to 35, which the numbers are smaller relative to previous seasons, previous years. So you try to keep everything organized. The coaches and players are focused on the opponents that we're playing, and then we have other people in the building that they have different responsibilities. So we just try to keep pressing forward, keep moving forward, and just stay as prepared as we possibly can.
Nick, you talked about Herbert not turning the ball over, and obviously he's got a big arm. What's the biggest coaching point for the secondary in a sense when you face a guy like that with a big arm? Is it any throw is possible? You can't give up on any throw or get lazy on any throw because he can make it. You take more chances because he doesn't turn the ball over, that if he does put one anywhere near it, man, you got to go get it. How do you kind of go about facing Justin because he hasn't turned the ball over as much?
Yeah, you just have to be sound in your responsibilities. So you got to play the call the right way, make sure you're in the right spots, play discipline, understanding in certain situations. Is there a go-to player, where they might go with the ball? Do they design it a certain way? So Justin's played really well. And the other thing about him that's probably not underrated, but his toughness is as good as any player in the league. I mean, this guy has played hurt. He's played with injuries. He keeps showing up. He's strong. He can make throws with people draped all over him. So it's just playing good, sound, disciplined football, making sure they're in the right spots so you don't give them an opportunity to create an explosive play.
Yeah, you mentioned he makes plays with his legs as well, but he's not like Lamar Jackson running plays, right? He runs in a different way.
Different kind of dynamic, but you can't underestimate his ability to get yards. So he's fast, probably faster than you think he is. They don't necessarily have quarterback design runs per se like Lamar and even Josh to a certain extent. But physically, he's built like Josh Allen. But Buffalo probably has a little bit more design runs for Josh. But Justin does a lot of things well, and he's been a good player in this league ever since he stepped on the field.
I guess I got to ask it because why are there no more Ricards and Matlocks in this league? How come we don't have any like 305-pound fullbacks anymore in this league?
It's case by case.
And they're unique dudes, too, because they were D tackles.
They're very unique.
I mean, Ricard was actually a defensive tackle doing some things, and they put him over on offense, and he stayed there.
It's all about your system, how you're going to deploy the players that you have, what's the role. I'm even going back to when I was in New England with James Devlin, who was a fullback. Yeah, right. James was a defensive tackle, defensive end at Brown before he transitioned to a fullback role. So you're just trying to create an opportunity for a player in whatever role that is. So I mean, Baltimore's done a great job. And when you look at kind of Baltimore and the Chargers, there's some similarities. Yeah. So having the mindset and the open-mindedness to experiment with players in that role, I mean, that's a credit to the staffs and respective buildings.
Well, I understand Devlin. I mean, he's smart. He went to the right university.
I thought you were going to ask, why don't we have defensive backs built like Michael Pierce? But I think the answer is obvious. Yeah. But I wanted to ask you this. Linebackers, they used to grow them bigger. And when did you notice things starting to change? And it was an evolution thing, right? They had to cover more guys, so they had to get a little more svelte, if you will.
Yeah, there was probably a transition there in the middle teens where you start to see a little bit more nickel and sub defense, and to be able to handle some of the spatial elements. You want to make sure you weren't creating sort of mismatches, but it's become a space game, so you want to be able to kind of use nickel maybe to multiple groups, and to be able to defend the field both horizontally and vertically. And I'd say Henley's a really good example. I mean, here's a guy 6 foot, 230 pounds, runs 4.5 or whatever it is. So covers a lot of ground, covers a lot of space. When you go back, I mean, Bowman's coaching him, but we go back and look at San Francisco, it was him and Willis. We're talking about two of the fastest linebackers that were probably in the league at the same time. So everything is kind of cyclical, but you've kind of seen the league become a little bit more of a space game. So you want to make sure you're not mismatched. So it's always a chess game back and forth. But, there was probably an evolution there in the mid-teens and 12, 13, 14. And, we were kind of involved in that a little bit in New England, going from the old 30 front with Ted Johnson and Teddy Bruschi, and even when Vrabel was playing inside to, using like Chung, a little bit more linebacker, if you will. Chargers are kind of doing it with Derwin James. So it kind of goes in cycles, but ultimately you want to try to get as much speed on the field as possible.
Nick, how do you fight trying to do too much in a playoff game, trying to put too much in, trying to install too much in the game plan versus these are the things that we do. Let's maybe have a wrinkle here, a wrinkle there. But how do you fight not trying to do too much for a big playoff game?
Yeah, you got to be disciplined because the reality is you're not going to do a whole number of different things. And even with the players, like your preparation, what you do during the course of the week, you're not going to try a boatload of new things. Right. Like whatever you've done to help you get to this point, that's where the focus is. Again, if you need to tweak something schematically where you think you could take advantage of something, then you'll go ahead and do that. But you're not making large-scale changes, including the players. Like, don't make it more than what it is. You still have to go through a normal week of preparation and do the things that got you to this point, including your pregame meal, your pregame snack, how you prepare, everything that goes into. You want to try to normalize it and stay on your routine.
All right, we all love the NFL playoffs, Nick, but other than the NFL playoffs, what's your favorite postseason in all of sport? Wow. Is it, say, NBA playoffs, March Madness? Is it NHL? What else?
I probably, through the years, have kind of shifted a little bit towards the NBA playoffs, just because of the level of basketball that's played. I think I've grown to have an appreciation for hockey and just the rigors that those players have to endure. It's very physically and mentally taxing, and they're 7-game series, 5-game series. So I'd say basketball over the last 2 to 3 years, probably watched a little bit more in the postseason when you just see the level of play that's involved. But I think any teams, whatever the sport, when you make it to this point, it's about high-level execution, and the teams that play the best are ultimately going to be the ones that advance.
What about Ryder Cup?
I'm all in on anything golf related. I was watching the Century Classic over in Hawaii to kick off the golf season.
That's right.
So
That's
I'll
right.
watch golf anytime, any place, any time of the year. Ryder Cup has that just the juice is flowing for sure.
Don't you think the NFL sort of compares to March Madness in the way that it's a one and done situation and anything can happen over the course of 60 minutes?
That's probably the apt comparison. So it's one game. That's all you have in front of you. So if you win, you advance. If you lose, you're done playing for that year, and then you're on to next year. So just it heightens the stakes a little bit, but by the same token, you still have to go out there and just play good, solid football and not try to make it more than what it really is.
If we were to ask Greg Roman what he remembered about you, what would he say?
Probably not much. That I was a little pipsqueak because I was a true freshman, 155-pound, 60 quarterback. So he probably wouldn't remember very much. But I have a lot of respect for Greg. We established a relationship through the years. I have a lot of respect for what he's done, and always have an opportunity to kind of catch up with one another at the combine. So, happy for him, the success that he's having.
All right, we'll see him Saturday. Thanks a lot, Nick. Good luck.
You bet. Thanks.